one of my other shockaroos from Fast Like a Girl going out into the world, and you all probably see this from your podcast followers and the people that are using your product, is how many 20-year-olds do not have a period.
Yeah.
And it's either because of birth control or I think it's largely because of stress. I think the stress levels of the teenagers and the 20-year-olds is so high. And whenever stress is high, progesterone is shy. She's out. She doesn't do well with cortisol. So have you seen anybody start to use seed cycling and specifically leaning into estrogen or leaning into flax and pumpkin, and they actually start to get their cycle back?
Yeah, that's one of the coolest ones. I think there's so many cool ones. Helping people get pregnant, I love to see that. And then also people who have not had a regular cycle or a cycle sometimes in years, all of a sudden get their period back. We've had, Yasmin, maybe you can kind of point out some of the more specific stories. I can't remember now, but we've had people who haven't had a period in maybe like 2 years. And then all of a sudden they start seed cycling, and within like 3 months they get their cycle back. And gosh, what a wonderful feeling that must be, right?
Like, they're always shocked.
They're always shocked, especially if they're kind of thinking about family planning. They want to make sure they're menstruating, they're ovulating. We've had a lot of women. We spoke to a woman recently who was having an ovulatory cycle. So she was having a period, but she wasn't ovulating. And so seed cycling was basically able to help her get her ovulation back, which is, we know, the main event of a menstrual cycle and so important. So anytime I can get people's phases to come back, we feel super excited.
Yeah. And I was just shocked at how many women don't have a period. And it bothered me so much that I actually started to look into what happens when we shed each month. Like, if you think about the menstrual cycle, it's like nothing in there is a mistake. And so why would our uterine lining every month shed? And of course, you have to let the unfertilized egg out somehow. So you got to get all the hormones that came in at this big peak during ovulation. It has to go somewhere. But the shocking thing that I found was that there's actually 4 toxins in menstrual blood. There are pesticides, there are phthalates, there are forever chemicals, and there are plastics. And this is based off a PubMed study. So literally shedding every month is so much more than your ability to get pregnant. It's actually how we detox. So using something like seed cycling seems like a really cool way to bring that cycle back. Do we know anything about these seeds and what they do for detox? I feel like you had mentioned something earlier about that.
Yeah, well, we know that. And Mindy, you explained this so eloquently in your videos, that healthy estrogen elimination is really key, and that happens through our gut and our liver. And so I think specifically things like flax seeds also help with that. Anything that has a lot of fiber in it is going to help with that elimination of estrogen that you don't want recirculating through your body, causing all these issues. So I personally believe, and just looking at all the nutrients in the seeds, that it is helping with that. And it's such a good point too, because when we shut down our period, we're not getting this beautiful thing we get every month, which is a report card for our health. And essentially, like, every month your period tells you, like, how am I doing? Am I so stressed that my period went away? Or am I so going through something that my period is super heavy or super light, or it's irregular, I don't know when it's coming. And so our periods give us so much valuable information, and it's really sad for me to see somebody want to just voluntarily shut that down versus thinking, how can I optimize it and make it what it is? And I think that's why so many women are so in tune with their bodies, because we get that monthly report card. We understand more so how our bodies are doing. Versus men, they don't get that information, and they don't get that way to properly detoxify. I remember when the raw food movement was really popular in the early, when was it, 2008, 2009, all these women stopped getting their periods. And they thought, oh, that's good. That's a good thing, because, and really what it was is they were not eating enough food. They were under eating so much that their bodies were like, we're shutting down reproduction or any opportunity of reproduction so that you're not getting a period. But again, we really want women to feel like their periods are powerful and their periods can be really beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I love the analogy of a report card. I am working a lot more with the perimenopausal and menopausal women, but in perimenopause, one of the things that's very classic, and I'm thinking about the seeds through this lens, is that you start clotting.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of low progesterone. So it's a sign like, hey, we got to work on stress. We got to bring glucose up. And now you have me thinking we need to bring in some more seeds. So have you seen with menopausal women, the symptoms balance a little bit, periods change a little bit?
I actually tell Yasmin all the time, we talk about this, that seed cycling is probably the best suited product for women in perimenopause. We've had so many women in perimenopause who feel like they're not themselves, their periods are out of whack, they've shortened, they've lengthened, they don't really understand what's going on, they're not sleeping well, their libido is gone, and then they start to use seed cycling and their cycle becomes regulated again. So they almost feel like they're not perimenopausal anymore. So and anytime you can get that extra time or those extra years to have a regular cycle, that's really nice, especially a lot of women who report their libido coming back after seed cycling. That's amazing. And so we've also had a lot of women who are going through menopause and postmenopausal use seed cycling. And Yasmin and I want to look into this a little bit more and hopefully one day create a product specifically for them. They can use seed cycling as it is. But what we understand from our medical advisor is that it's really the flax and the pumpkin phase that's most important for them. So if anybody is at home listening to this and they're going through menopause or postmenopausal and wants to do seed cycling on their own, they can just take a tablespoon of flax and pumpkin every single day. They can use our product too, and it's still great. But if you just want to focus on one phase specifically, it's really that flax and pumpkin that's going to help with estrogen and help with progesterone and all of that in those years.
I love that. I love that. I mean, again, I just got off a call with my membership academy and we went through all the different ways you can detox. And I was like, before you spend money on expensive detox programs, let me walk you through the basics of what it looks like to detox that will actually save you money. So when I hear what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, like, if you could take the, things like the timing of fasts and the things like, I really believe that there's moments for women to go high carb, low carb. And then we've got great conversations right now about protein and adding protein back in. And then we put seed cycling into this. Now you're actually giving approachable, cost-effective strategies for women that are suffering instead of us bouncing from doctor office to doctor office to doctor, trying to get the antidepressant right and the patch right and the cream right. Like that is causing as much crazy making as the symptoms themselves. So I love what you just said about the perimenopausal and menopausal women taking this. And I'm excited to try it myself. So
yeah. And I think too, thinking about those years and specifically perimenopause and menopause and making them more manageable. Like I love the food as medicine approach. And I've learned from experts such as yourself that really everything that we do leading up to those years, specifically with stress management, because at a certain point our ovaries shut down and our adrenals take over. Anything that we can do to support the body when it comes to stress, when it comes to nutrients, when it comes to gut health can be so valuable. And that's why I love seed cycling, because I actually think that you can also eat to improve your stress response by eating specific nutrients. So I think all of these things help at every stage of a woman's life. Of course, you want to, make sure you're older. I'm not going to give my toddler these seeds right now, but when she's older, and she starts to get her period, I'll give them to her. And that's the beautiful thing about using food is anybody can use it.
Yeah. And there's no consequence if you're using clean. I mean, that's the most obvious. Like your body, your body figures it out because it's in harmony with what your cells want as opposed to a chemical that is out of harmony. So I really want to point that out.